So let's see what Nick Strength and Power has to say.
All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. Today, I wanted to do a recap specifically about Calum Von Moger earning his pro card at the 2020 NPC Universe this past weekend. So, Calum did, in fact, win his class at the NPC Universe this weekend, but he did not win the overall, but still earned a pro card. Now, the video you're watching right now is courtesy of the guy that actually took second to Calum Von Moger. This is the first video that I've seen of his class so far. This guy's name was Austin Burge. He also earned his pro card here, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because 13 pro cards were given away in Classic Physique alone at this one show. His Instagram page is Beezy Physique, so shout out to him for the video because I didn't see any video online of this competition so far. So shout out to Austin Burge. So I wanted to do a whole video specifically recapping the universe and the Classic Physique in particular because Calum, he didn't like the original video that I made. He left a comment on that video where he said, "You contradicted yourself the whole segment you did on me. Weak report, Nick." Now, the original video I did, essentially, it was a very quick segment on Calum competing before the results were out. I said, I think he looks thin, but I think he looks very conditioned. I think he looks much smaller than he looks in his pictures, but I think he looks very conditioned. I also said I didn't think he would earn his pro card, but I thought he would win his class. Now, I think that particular statement is what Calum is talking about when he says I contradicted myself, because what I didn't realize about this show is the overall winner was not the only one to get their pro card. The winner of every class and the runner-up of every class got their pro card. I did not know that. 13 amateurs in Classic Physique all got pro cards, and 24 pro cards were awarded in men's physique just at this one show. I had no idea the universe was giving out that many pro cards. So Calum, by winning his class, and again, Classic Physique is done by height classes, by winning his class, Calum earned his pro card. Now, I did not think that was the case. I thought he had to win the overall. So I thought he would win his class, but I did not expect him to win the overall because I looked at some of the other classes, and some of the guys in those classes were much better than Calum, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the video you're looking at right now is not from the overall comparison. This is from Calum's class comparison. So the guy next to Calum is the guy that took second. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because everybody has been making videos, comments, Instagram posts, saying it's controversial, saying Calum only got the pro card because he is an Instagram celebrity, and all this. So it's kind of a controversial result, as is everything. When anybody who's big on social media wins anything, it's always controversial. So honestly, I think Calum didn't like my first video because I didn't kiss his ass. I mean, let's be honest. I kind of criticized how he looks. I didn't think he looked great here. And the reason for that, again, I do think he had great conditioning, and that's obviously something we love to see in any division. And again, this is Classic Physique, not bodybuilding, so he doesn't have to be a mass monster. Granted, he just didn't look as big as he looks in Instagram photos, and that's to be expected. Lighting and angles are 90% of the game in bodybuilding. But if you look at Calum's most recent picture, prepping for this show, to me, he looked twice, if not like 5 times as full in that picture than how he looked on stage. He looked very flat on stage to me. And when I say thin, I want to explain what I mean by when I say he looked thin. He looked skinny. So let's compare Calum for a second to Chris Bumstead. So Chris Bumstead obviously is your current Classic Physique Mr. Olympia. They're about the same height. Chris is obviously bigger than Calum at this point. So let's compare the front double bicep. Chris is often criticized for having weak biceps. This is a weak pose for him. So I know he's Mr. Olympia, but this is a weak shot for Chris. So here's what I mean by Calum looking skinny. Look at his midsection and look at his lats in the front double bicep pose compared to Chris. I say he looks skinny because he looks narrow. The illusion created by his lats to his abs all the way down looks straight, like 2 straight lines. It looks like a rectangular shape rather than a V. It looks like an H rather than a V. Look at Chris. Look at how his lats taper down into his waist. So when I say Calum looks skinny, I'm not necessarily saying he looks small, but he has a skinny illusion to his physique where he doesn't look as wide. So that's what I meant when I said Calum looks skinny. I didn't mean he looks small, even though I do think he looks smaller than Instagram pictures. I do think overall his physique looked much smaller than he looked on Instagram, and that is oftentimes the case. Now, again, I know I'm comparing Calum to your current classic physique Mr. Olympia, so it's kind of an unfair comparison, but I think it demonstrates what I'm talking about here. Now, let's look at the back shots, because I thought Calum's back was another very weak point for him at this show. And if you compare it to Chris, because Chris is another guy who gets criticized for having a weak back. Everyone says that Chris's weak point is his back. So let's compare Chris's back to Calum's back. The size standpoint, Chris's back is bigger. From a detail standpoint, Chris's back is more detailed. From a width standpoint, again, look at how his lats taper down into his lower back, into his waist. And look at Calum. His lats almost go straight down instead of taper, and that's what I mean by skinny. Also, you can look at the glutes and hamstrings, but again, we knew that Calum's legs were going to be a weak point for him. So I didn't necessarily mean disrespect when I said Calum looks skinny, but I stand by what I said. It seems like Calum didn't like what I said, but I still stand by it. That's what I think. My original opinion is still what I stand by. And honestly, reading some of your comments, I thought you guys thought that I was going too easy on Calum. One of the comments that I believe has more likes than Calum's comment, this is one of the top comments, he said, "Dang, Nick, what are you looking at? Tell me which muscle group of Calum's looked good. I didn't see anything that looked good. His color looked really weird, too." So if anything, I thought I was going a bit easy on Calum in that last video, but again, I think he didn't like it because I wasn't kissing his ass. But he did earn his pro card, and don't get me wrong, if that's the criteria, I do think he deserved it. If all he had to do was win his class or take second in his class to get a pro card, then he certainly deserved it. If Calum had won the overall here, that would be a controversial decision, and that's what I want to talk about. Let's look at the overall picture. So the four gentlemen that you see in this picture are the winners of the classes. So these guys won their height classes and then got to go on for the comparison for the overall. These guys, I thought all of them looked better than Calum. To be completely honest and neutral about it, I like Calum, but I think these guys look much more classic than Calum did, even though, again, he's the more popular social media guy. So again, let's look at the front relax pose. Let's look at the V-tapers of these guys. Every single guy in this lineup, I think, has a better V-taper than Calum. Now, the guy he's standing next to is a guy by the name of Paul Kanu. He also turned pro here. Look at his V-taper. He's much smaller than Calum from a muscular standpoint. But look at the way his lats taper into his waist. And then look at Calum. Calum actually has kind of a blocky waist. He doesn't have a bubble gut or anything like that, but just the shape of his waist and the lack of width in his lats. He kind of looks blocky next to a guy that has a truly classic physique like Paul, the guy next to him. And the guy on the very end, on the far right, that is the guy that actually won the entire overall show. He earned his pro card as well. And his name was Tomas Adame Hernandez. Now, I think he deserved that victory because if you look at these pictures, I mean, he looks pretty good. I mean, he's got a good amount of size. He's hitting a vacuum pose. His conditioning was good. And a lot of people are asking me about this as well. So typically throughout history, the NPC Universe was like the one opportunity for a natural competitor to turn pro. So I actually did kind of a deep dive into the rules of this competition. And interestingly enough, I saw Greg Doucette's video. He said the universe was no longer drug tested. That's actually not true. So the universe is still drug tested. So the winner of men's open bodybuilding who turned pro is drug tested. But that is the only competitor who is drug tested. From what I understand, only the men's open bodybuilding overall champion is the one that's drug tested. So classic physique, not drug tested at all. So the theory that Calum was natural here is not a valid theory. And of course, we all know that he's not. But to everybody that thought the universe was a natural competition, yes, historically it always has been. And it still is to an extent because they still drug test the bodybuilding guys apparently. But classic physique, not the case. And then if you go over, the scorecards are now out. Calum did good here by winning his class. There were 16 competitors, I believe, maybe 17, maybe 18. Yeah, there was a three-way tie for last, so 18 competitors. So he beat 17 other guys to get that first place spot. So he beat a lot of people to win that lineup. So I do think that is a deserved pro card. Again, if that's their criteria, just winning your class, then sure, he deserved it. Again, even though I honestly feel he looked smaller and he looked flat, I think he was in extremely good shape But I just don't think he had that classic of a look to his physique, and I think he looks smaller than his Instagram pictures. That's not a knock on his physique. That's not a knock on him as a person. But that is my honest opinion on how he looked. I don't think he looked great here. I think he looked great considering everything that's happened to him, all the injuries, all the setbacks, cycling off, all that stuff. Considering all that, he looked great. But compared to an IFBB Classic Physique Pro, and that's why I put up Calum versus Chris, that's what I'm comparing his standard to, because Calum has said his goal is to get to the Classic Physique Olympia. And let's be honest, if you put Calum on stage next to Chris Bumstead, it's going to be a smoke show. He's going to be destroyed. I mean, he has no chance against Bumstead or Breon. And I don't even think Breon has the most classic physique. Breon would destroy Calum. So that is my honest, in-depth analysis. Calum wanted a better analysis, so here it is. You guys were very interested in this. You guys saw all the videos that everyone else has made so far, so I wanted to weigh in. Again, I honestly think Calum looked great considering everything that happened. But compared to what his goal is, the Classic Physique Olympia, I don't think it was great, and that's what I know. That's a very high standard, but that's what I'm comparing him to. He's got 3 million followers. His goal is Classic Physique. His goal is the Classic Physique Olympia. So we're holding him to a very high standard here, and I think that is fair. I'm never going to be the guy that just says, hey, he deserved it because he's Calum. Let's not question it. And I'm not questioning it. Again, if that's their criteria, all you got to do is win your height class. Power to him, man. Power to him. 13 pro cards. I mean, that's awesome. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed yet already. As always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.